But even if several major companies will come in and agree on something like that, it's totally doable. It's absolutely possible.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
Thank you for joining us for MetaTraversal 3. This is the third part in a series of conversations moving toward a deliberative process around how we move across worlds. I help co-host here with Neil, Terry, Ben, Julie, and a slew of amazing people that Ben has assembled. And thank you, Ben, for organizing and making this happen. Daniel, oh goodness, I almost missed you, Daniel. Sorry about that. We have a number of amazing speakers here today. Julie is going to be kicking us off and has been doing a fantastic job of recording, but also bringing together our thoughts in Miro boards and helping to connect the dots.
Thank you. And I'm proud to be able to contribute to this community. And one of the things that I did last time we met is, and I'm sure you've heard of Miro. I used a Miro board to come to MetaTraversal and talk about how are we going to make this interoperable. And the green squares here was what was repetitious of last time. We talked about UX and UI design. We talked about ethics. We talked about avatars, portals, and the marketplace. And those seem to be the points that we really need to drive these conversations towards to put these standards, the best practices and things into place.
But today is about hyperporting across the metaverse. So we're going to talk about some of the challenges that we believe are associated with this. First, by just trying to define what we mean by this. So just talking about moving avatars through virtual worlds is one thing, but if we don't have standards for all of these things, they won't work together, right? So we need to cover the metaverse and Industry 4.0. There's a new set of protocols, new set of standards that we're proposing. Location-based domains, not document-based domains. These apply to geolocations and all categories of logic. This makes the spatial web searchable across these various different domains. And it's hyperspatial DNS, which will be able to resolve between semantic and spatial locations across those spatial domains.
People will be exploring and creating and socializing, obviously purchasing goods and services. There'll be places to go, things to do, and then people want to develop, operate, and access new worlds. And so each of those has a different tech stack that we're looking at, along with many other companies, of course, on what they. What does that mean for us, and what does that mean for our strategy and our future?
So a lot of that is about sharing information in a common way between very different systems with very different conceptual levels of approach. And that's involved me over the years in standards to do with the semantic web and ontologies, and especially in workflow and process interchange, because I tend to be interested in tasks that people do together when they share these worlds.
My main advice would be to people as we're progressing and we're trying to get standards is let's listen to the customers now, but the customers are certainly looking for customization. They're looking for traversal.
We actually were the first VR company, together with High Fidelity, who has showcased the interoperability in terms of the travel. A long way back in 2018, when we were together and High Fidelity was up and running, and we were in a virtual reality blockchain alliance with Philip Rosedale and on Somnium Space. We experimented and we created a teleportation system. He clicked on the High Fidelity button, and within 10 seconds, it took him from Somnium to High Fidelity seamlessly. So he disappeared from Somnium and he appeared in High Fidelity. So we kind of proved that this is possible. But the challenge, of course, is because those two companies, like us and High Fidelity, we had to agree on a set of things to make that happen. But in the future, it will be possible without agreeing, even though it's a question how long of the future is that. But even if several major companies will come in and agree on something like that, it's totally doable. It's absolutely possible.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
We know we talk about interoperations and interoperability and going from one place to the other in transmetropolitan, but I'd like to speak to why do we want to do that and for what reason? As we know, we're seeing a great prolific rise in virtual worlds, and many are nascent, which they haven't been fully populated yet. Why? Because there needs to be an aggressive culture in order for people to want to populate these worlds. But first we have to build these virtual worlds. We have to install what could be done in these virtual worlds, and then naturally comes in humanity, where I see we are taking the next step. Is the cultural settings. What is the environment? Is there environmental fidelity that leads to perceptual science, and perceptual fidelity that goes into cognitive fidelity? Is this an environment that I can actually relate with? Because if we're going to extend reality, then we must bring reality with it. And then the subset of wellness will actually be safety and privacy.
Identity is being a key place that interconnects people through the traversing of worlds, whether it's from one world to another, one platform to another platform, or independently served up worlds within that platform, like Open Simulator. Anybody can host their own virtual world based off of it, and that in that kind of core server side of things is what allows for that, and in conjunction with that hypergrid protocol. So something like that hypergrid protocol, that identity is actually traversing with you, which definitely kind of dovetails with what Austin Tate was talking about in regards to your identity, who you are, what you look like, regardless of where you're sort of jumping in from.
Right.
And in the Oculus browser, you have this option to have this open standard for travel to different rooms. So you can upload your asset and set your portal link or to any website, whatever you want. And if you click this portal or you collide with the physics, you automatically go to the new world. And there are some open experiments from the Chrome team and from the Oculus team to have this as a standard way to travel between worlds or between websites or between the metaverse. So this is an open standard they're working on. So it's really easy. Hopefully this will become their standard for this. And it's working on the Oculus browser now. The only problem is this is behind the flag.
It's not so much, what the experience is, or even if we're moving between worlds, whether it's in an elevator or a race car. I've seen some great ideas, but it's the how. It's kind of the technical capability and the standards. And we as consumers have to demand not only the standards be built to kind of protect us, but also to allow us to expand the experience. Again, look at this as an abundant experience as opposed to one of scarcity. Let's actually look at this as a collective and not try and build siloed worlds, but really look at, from the infrastructure perspective, what needs to happen. And I'm going to leave that to the hardcore network engineers and technologists. But let's look at the human perspective and what's important to us in the future and how we're going to actually build this and what we want from it. We really need to be smart. We can model out any type of opportunity and different value systems and different ways of living. And so let's utilize that instead of focusing on this immediate economic benefit, because the money will come. If we build it, the money will come.
What we learned today, focus on the red squares. I reviewed this at the beginning, but these red squares were kind of takeaways from all of the different talks. Like, let's talk about spatial standards, humanity first approach, the asset backpack, customizing to own the platforms, multi-chain blockchain, the creative collaboration, layers of data management. Consumers need to demand the protection. This is some of the feedback that I got from all the presentations today. Let's move this forward together and create that next conversation on March 3rd. So
it's opening the website as XR inside of Neos, and that lets us go inside so that we can then go to a different game.
So the first traversal here is
take us to any land.
Elevator.
So
now the elevator is one UX approach.
Make a elevator take anywhere.
The elevator was one way to approach how do you do the sort of server handshake in a clean way.
So going into this portal will then take me into this other reality.
So this is a live WebXR website that he's walking from one to the next, from any land to hubs.
This is the hubs last portal. Here we go.
And now you're in Gorilla Tag. So that is a very basic experience of moving from VR to a WebXR experience. And again, that is not moving back and forth, which is what Ben has been working on and what you saw a little bit earlier from Arnold. So thank you. Thank you for sharing all of those fantastic R&D projects. If you're interested in learning more about what they're working on, you're welcome to join us at omigroup.org, where some of this R&D has been taking place.